private equity is back in the headlines with plenty of buzz in emerging markets where the share of global private equity fundraising has quadrupled from 5% in 2003 to 20% last year. So let's delve into this, what this means for Africa. Michelle Catherine Osome, the CEO of African Venture Capital Association, also known as AVCA, joining me in studio. Good to have you with us. Thanks so much. Looking at the commentary you make around the importance of private equity in emerging markets, you say it has this catalytic effect to really spurring growth. Give us an idea of what you've seen in other emerging markets, what the private equity industry has done for growth in other EMs.
Well, I think that, Africa as a continent is really the most compelling investment opportunity, full stop. You have a continent that's had this stable growth, that's domestically driven. You have a very young population, 15 to 24, it's something like 200 million people, and that's set to double. And you have this affluency, so people are earning more wealth and they want to spend it on things, which is very good for companies that are in consumer industries. So telecommunications, financial services, fast-moving consumer goods, just sort of all of the things that we want. And those create investment opportunities for private companies. So how that relates to private equity and venture capital is, someone who has an investor who has money, can invest in a very good domestic company, wherever it is, South Africa or Nigeria, and really work with that to create a great company that can expand regionally or across the continent.
I mean, obviously, that's the role really of private equity, and you've seen a lot of international private equity players moving their base to Johannesburg or setting up a greater presence here. So who do you represent at AVCA? Tell us about some of the kind of key funds that you represent, and are you seeing that from a resource perspective, that they're allocating more resources to Africa?
Yeah, I think, AVCA is the trade association that represents, let's say, fund managers investing in Africa wherever they may be. So you're right, South Africa is a very strong, very prominent, very developed private equity market, but there are also fund managers in Nigeria, in Zimbabwe, really across the country. And really what we do is, help to educate about private equity, help to show that it has a very strong developmental impact, as you said, job creation, tax revenues for, so it's very, very different than what happens in developed markets.
Are they putting more emphasis on Africa, though? I mean,
definitely.
in terms of their focus, in terms of allocating the skills necessary to manage these funds, raise these funds?
Absolutely. I mean, you have dedicated African fund managers who specifically look for good opportunities in private companies in Africa, and it's what they've been doing for 10 or 15 years. So you can see now they've developed this expertise. And the good thing is a lot of investors who, as you said, were looking at Latin America or Asia are now looking to Africa because of the growth story. So it's even more exciting.
Now, just looking at total funds raised back in 2008, $2.2 billion for sub-Saharan African fundraising, and it's around $1.4 billion in 2012. So it has fallen back, and of course, all as a result of what took place in the global recession. It started to pick up. Do you get an indication, do you get a sense that there's a lot of appetite out there, a lot of money waiting to be channeled into the private equity space in Africa?
Yeah, and I think, as a trade association, one of our jobs is to bring a lot of research to the industry so investors can do their proper due diligence and invest. So, although we haven't reached the 2008 levels, I think it's coming because more and more global investors are getting in touch with trade associations, trying to understand. Actually, later this year, AVCA will be releasing a lot of research on, the African private equity landscape, and we hope that will go a long way to help educate investors and unlock more capital for the continent.
When it comes to the type of sectors or countries, are you seeing private equity funds focused on countries first and then looking at opportunities within the countries, or are they sector specific?
Well, I think right now in this evolution, you're seeing both. So, since we're in South Africa, you have some very strong South African GPs are here. They've been investing very successfully for a long time. And you have that same sort of expertise in Nigeria, in Ghana, and in East Africa. So you have, Pan-African GPs, and there are lots of them. You have domestic and regional, and you also have sector funds, so healthcare, agriculture, clean tech. So it's a real evolution, maturation of the industry.
What about the African consumer? Are there funds that are dedicated to getting exposure to the rising purchasing power, I suppose you could call it that, of our African middle class consumer?
Yeah, I mean, one great story is a portfolio company called Lichigo that does, consumer loans, because, you want to take a loan to pay, perhaps buy a house or another good. So, that's a financial services, which is a play on consumer, that people have more wealth and they want to expand their assets, or they want to send their kids to school. And there are a multitude of examples, retail, shopping malls across Africa, grocery stores.
Our private equity funds specifically, because that is a big issue, the cost of real estate in Africa, and also getting your hand, in fact, on that legal document. So is that a space that private equity players are looking at specifically?
Yeah, of course. I mean, there are a number of private equity firms that focus on commercial real estate or residential real estate around the consumer. As I said, creating shopping malls or creating affordable housing, or a consumer play is a business that provides residential mortgages for people. So they're filling in lots of the gaps that are missing to help develop economies effectively.
When it comes to the differences between the private equity landscape in sub-Saharan Africa and the rest of the world, what stands out? And specifically around the time that they would stay invested, and of course before exiting, perhaps the type of returns that equity players are demanding. Is it different?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked me that question, because I think that what is exciting about private equity and venture capital in Africa is it has a very strong developmental impact and strong commercial returns. So pretty much everything that is done is accretive from a job perspective. So the idea again is you're investing in a private company so it can grow, so it can hire more people. That creates tax revenue and creates wealth. And it's very, very different than the model that is in a developed market, that may use leverage. Not that it isn't, but the focus is really on providing equity. So it's very different. But a lot of these questions will be asked is, at the AVCO conference, putting out more research and really getting these messages out to kind of debunk some of the myths around private equity and venture capital.